It's time now for County-Wide, a presentation of Yavapai Broadcasting News. You'll hear about the interesting issues and happenings that affect all our lives. Here's today's County-Wide.
Well, good day and welcome once again to County-Wide. I'm Brad Miller. Today, again, special guest, part two of a two-part program with Clayton Kuhles. And Clayton was with MIA Recoveries, Inc. You can find them online at miarecoveries.org. And as we talked about at length in our first segment, the first of these two programs, Clayton has gone and almost by just luck, by happenstance, as a mountain climber and aficionado of getting into those higher climbs overseas, finding wreckage of lost aircraft from World War II in that first case, but from other areas, including in Chile and China. And just you've become an explorer and a man with a mission that has got to be important to a lot of folks, families of veterans lost in World War II and other conflicts around the globe.
That's correct. Any U.S. aircraft missing, I'm interested in finding it.
It's incredible.
And if it's a difficult mission and no one's doing it, then that is magnetic for me. I'm drawn to those hard cases that no one else wants to tackle.
Now, as we talked about in our first segment, the first time was just you were climbing, I think coming down a mountain, and you heard about this wreckage, found it, and that's really kind of triggered what MIA Recoveries is all about.
That's correct.
Coming up beginning in October, and a mission that'll take you, it sounds like, through the end of the year, is something that's a little different. A lot of times you kind of find that wreckage, and then who the individuals are, the remains that may be found, become incidental to the plane wreckage itself. This time, you've got the name of a very specific serviceman, and you're being commissioned to find the wreckage, his cohorts on the flight, and all of these kinds of things. That's different, and this is from a family in Arizona. Talk to me about this.
Right. Well, I had heard several years ago that the U.S. military was trying to find a particular B-24 that went down on the hump in the 1940s. I obtained the archival report on the aircraft, and I had searched for it for several years. And then through the grapevine, I heard about an aircraft wreckage on a particular mountain called Shidibi Mountain. And it's right on that border of India and Burma, which is where most of the aircraft went down because of icing and turbulence. And just hearing about the wreckage was all I needed. And on a mission in 2010, I went to the site and I documented it. We actually found the fully legible wing number. This was the aircraft the U.S. government had been trying to find for decades. They had never actually sent a team out to look for it, but they were interested in finding it. And so I found the wreckage. I positively identified it, and the information went up on my website. And a couple years later, I was contacted by a young lady out of San Francisco who told me that her grandmother, who lives in Vail, Arizona, which is down by Tucson, is still alive, and this woman is the widow of the pilot, a First Lieutenant Robert King. And so she asked me if I would please come down to Vail to meet her grandmother, and so we made the arrangements, and I drove down to Vail, and there was a TV crew from Tucson there, and I had a lovely meeting with this woman. And she was just so ecstatic to learn that I had found her husband's B-24.
Wow. They
had no word about the aircraft for decades, and here I found it, was able to identify it through a legible wing number. So the Chinese-American community in Los Angeles heard about it, the discovery, and they asked me if I would allow them to kind of sponsor the expedition. And I said I would go back as soon as the next weather window occurred. November of last year was going to be the expedition launch date, but the mountain encountered early snow, so I had to abort that mission, and I'll be returning to that crash site early October of this year.
October. Let me stop for a minute. I want to bounce back to something. You met the widow and you talked with her. Tell me a little bit about that, because this is what you're really doing here. We're talking about climbing mountains. We're talking about finding wreckage. We're talking about this is really a human mission of the heart.
Right.
And when you talk to that woman, you are a flesh and blood connection directly to where her husband gave his life serving our country. That had to be a monumental moment for both of you.
Yeah, it was so emotional. And her family was there. Her son, who actually who's a junior, who's named after his father.
Okay.
Very, very powerful stuff.
Yeah.
And unless you've personally been involved in a situation like that, it's kind of hard to describe the feelings.
I understand.
And that's not just their feelings, but my feelings as well.
Yeah.
And they were just so interested to know everything I could tell them about the site. And they wanted to know, when can you go back and recover the remains? Because there were remains laying in plain view on the ground surface. Mm-hmm. I documented everything with photos and GPS, but I left everything in place. And the mission now is to return to that site in early October of this year before the snows arrive at that altitude, have a full team there and excavate the site.
Yeah.
And then deliver those remains to our consulate in Calcutta.
Right. Now, do you have to go? We chatted a tiny bit about this in our first program, but you work not for, certainly, but clearly State Department or I guess U.S. Defense Department is going to have an interest in what you're doing.
Well, the remains will be transferred by our consulate in Calcutta to the Department of Defense agency that does the DNA matching. And they have two labs, one at Pearl Harbor and the other Omaha, Nebraska.
Okay, so they're very hands-on.
Oh, yeah.
They're ultimately, okay.
Yeah, everything will be transferred to them. And then over a period of months, they'll do the DNA matching, notify the families, and arrange the repatriation ceremonies. That's correct.
Okay. And clearly this is going to be something, I don't know if you've been in touch with other family members from the other crew members that were on this particular flight, but all of them serve to benefit from the work that you're going to do.
That's correct. I've been in touch with all the families. Yeah. But until the DNA analysis is done, we don't know exactly whose remains will be brought out.
Right.
But we'll just do the best we can.
Right. And you talked a little bit, some of our listeners might think, well, why does the military not go do this? There's a lot of reasons. There's military concerns in there. There's simply environmental concerns. Getting to the sites are massively expensive. And they rely on folks, adventurers, if you will, not unlike yourself, who go and have taken this on as a personal mission.
That's correct. These sites are very remote. They're very difficult to get to. In all cases, the local governments do not allow the U.S. government to bring in their own helicopters or aircraft.
Right.
And which means they have to go in on foot, or maybe if they're very lucky, they might be able to hire at exorbitant costs the local Air Force to transport them. But the local Air Forces are not equipped as well as Americans. So getting them to rent you a helicopter for a week is, good luck on that.
Prohibitively expensive.
Yes.
Probably not going to get you what you need done.
Right. You have to go in on foot. We're talking weeks of effort. But the main concern to the U.S. Department of Defense is that this is an area that's inhabited as a sanctuary by numerous armed insurgent organizations.
Right.
Some are Maoist and some are tribal groups. But either way, they're armed insurgent groups. And I think the U.S. government is concerned about a hostage situation developing.
Right. Yeah, we can't expose ourselves to that. So here you go. The greatest military on the face of the earth just can't get done what one dedicated guy in a pair of hiking boots can get done. And that's kind of what MIA Recoveries is doing.
Well, I enjoy the risk. I am actually attracted.
You would have to.
Yeah, I'm very comfortable with the risk. I'm not put off by it. And so for me, it's just a walk in the park. Yeah.
Well, I hope this goes well. I sure want to have you back after the October expedition, find out how it went, and get to kind of a firsthand account of how this goes. I want to take a short break, and when we come back, we'll talk more with Clay Kuhles, MIARecoveries.org, about some of the other missions that you've taken, because we've been talking mostly about the hump, the Himalayan hump, where a lot of those World War II missions were flown. As you mentioned in our first program, you've been to other countries, other continents, anywhere U.S. military have been lost. We'll take a short break, and it's countywide. We'll return right after this.
Life changes, then it changes again. Predicting the unexpected in life is impossible. That's why it's called unexpected. So when it comes to financial goals, our philosophy is don't predict, prepare. Hi, I'm Edward Jones financial advisor Matthias Sandoval. A job loss, change in health, or a loss of a loved one can have a big impact on your family's financial security. Let's work together to help make sure you're equipped for life's unexpected events. Call our office to schedule a face-to-face appointment.
Edward Jones, making sense of investing. Member SIPC.
Verde Solaire, your hometown heating, air conditioning, and plumbing company in the Verde Valley, and your trusted North Central Arizona Goodman dealer. Goodman is a name you can trust with the revolutionary Comfort Bridge technology factory installed into select Goodman gas furnaces and air handlers to ensure the entire system operates at peak energy efficient performance. Verde Solaire offers free in-home estimates Locally owned and operated since 1983. Visit them at verdisolaire.com. Better, cleaner, faster.
Hi, this is Lewis Rice with Rice Accounting, Jackson Hewitt Tax Service, with a very sincere thank you for your continued business over the last 20 years. All of us at Jackson Hewitt Tax Service are very honored for the many community awards we've been given over the years. As always, we are open year-round, providing services for taxes, payroll, and bookkeeping. Jackson Hewitt Tax Service, located throughout northern Arizona, can help you with all your tax and accounting needs. For our nearest location, call 800-234-1040.
Let's talk. That's the message from Jonna Randall Murdoch, your local Farm Bureau agent, providing a personal touch when making insurance and financial decisions. Jonna will simplify your insurance needs while offering competitive pricing. Let's talk auto, home, life, and farm. Call Jonna at Farm Bureau today at 928-649-8686. Your Cottonwood Farm Bureau property and casualty insurance company. At Farm Bureau, they insure more than just farms.
And again, welcome back. It's Countywide. I'm Brad Miller. Clayton Kuhles, MIARecoveries.org. And I say it like the website so you can take a look, even perhaps as you're listening to our program. It is the second of two compelling stories with this adventurer who has taken it upon himself to reunite families and loved ones with the remains, whenever possible, of folks who have given their lives in defense of our country. And a lot of that focus and what we've talked about so far, Clay, has been the hump in the Himalayas, that tricky flight that hundreds of aircraft, thousands of flyers were lost, helping out, doing what they could during World War II. You were starting to tell me during our short break, let's share that with the listeners, about a flight made up primarily of Arizona crew?
That is correct. It was a B-24 that crashed on the hump in the early 1940s, and it had the nose art name of Hot as Hell. It was
That's an Arizona plane.
Yeah, actually, it was a play on words because it was a very attractive woman in a swimsuit, 1940s style, painted on the nose of this aircraft. So it was called Hot as Hell.
Okay.
And anyway, the pilot was out of Mesa, and the co-pilot was out of Prescott.
Okay.
And I had heard about a plane crash wreckage way up in the jungle, but it was still below timberline some years ago, and I went to the site, and I was able to record some numbers, which turned out to be the aircraft construction number, and with some research assistance, we were able to cross that to the actual aircraft serial number, and then we were able to locate and notify all the families. And the navigator was a gentleman out of, I think, New York State at the time, and his nephew, who lives in Cary, North Carolina, was very interested in learning about his uncle, and he did some research, and bingo, goes to my website, and he learned I discovered the wreckage of his uncle's aircraft.
That plane.
Yes. So he asked me if I thought he could go to the site. And I said, well, I'll introduce you to my trucking agent, and you can go there and or at least make your best faith effort. So he went there, and he's of the Jewish religion, and he got to the site. I think he said later on it was the toughest thing he'd ever done in his life. He thought he was going to die numerous times, but he got to the site, and he held a Jewish memorial service for his uncle and for one other crew member who was Jewish. Then he held a Christian ceremony at the site for the remaining crew members who were of the Christian religion. Incredibly moving story.
Yeah.
And he's the only family member who's actually gone to the site. So talk about dedication.
Did he have climbing experience?
Zero. I don't think he ever even set up a tent in his life.
Just young and eager and dedicated.
I heard the stories afterwards. They had he was having an emotional moment out there, and they had to hold him by the hand and get him through these rivers. I'm sure it was an experience he'll never forget as long as he lives. But he made the effort, and he was successful.
Wow.
And this comes down to what I tell people. These missions are about one thing: will. It doesn't matter how much money you have or how smart you have or who your backers are. You need the will. And without the will, you will not be successful.
Yeah.
He had the will.
Wow. Was he able to recover remains too then, or was this a different?
The U.S. military sent an archaeologist team to that site 4 times over a period of seasons. They did a full site excavation, or fairly full.
Okay.
And they did recover remains.
So that plane happened to be in an area where it was safe for them to use a military attachment.
They felt safe at the time.
Gotcha. Okay.
And this was back 2010, 2012 in that neighborhood. Since then, maybe they've developed intel that there's more armed insurgent organizations in the area.
Gotcha. That changes quickly sometimes,
yes, of course.
as we can attest. Talk to me, if you would. Again, we've talked an awful lot about the Himalayas, the hump, and the planes, chiefly cargo planes that were lost there. But your dedication to this recovery program has taken you to Chile, even Canada.
That's correct. I was given information about a C-54 aircraft that was assigned to the Strategic Air Command, and they were doing a crew change, bringing a crew of Air Force personnel down from Canada and bringing in a new crew to operate a SAC early warning station. Back in that era, we had radar and other facilities before we had satellites to determine if there would be an incoming attack from the Russians or whatever. So they were a SAC crew, and again, that stands for Strategic Air Command. And this C-54 disappeared over the Yukon territory, and no one ever found it. Well, I developed information on that, and I found it was in the very far southwest corner in a place called Kluane National Park on the base of, here again, the highest mountain in the whole area. But these mountains create their own weather pattern, and the turbulence and icing can be extreme, and I'm sure that's what brought the aircraft down.
Okay.
That was a few years ago, and then...
when was the craft lost?
Well, it was lost during the Cold War. I think it went down...
early 60s?
It was in the early 60s, maybe 62.
Okay.
And then I received information on a U.S. Navy C-47 that went down in Chile. And they were the crew members were transporting intelligence officers who are assigned to our embassy in Santiago. And I developed information on that. And here again, there's I can pull up the reports. I know what the weather was like, what the wind conditions and icing altitudes were. And I can plot all that on a map and make an educated guess where to look, the probable search areas.
Right.
And I found that wreckage as well. And here again, I had been up on the mountain for a couple of weeks. We explored rumors, never could find the wreckage. We were out of food. We came back down to a village. And we rented a cabin from this Chilean lady who doesn't speak any English, but she was fascinated to know who I am and why I'm there.
Sure.
And through an interpreter, I told her I was there looking for a particular aircraft wreck, and all of a sudden she just lit up. She was very attentive. She said, "Oh, don't go anywhere. My brother knows something about this." So she sends word out, and her brother comes and says, "Oh yeah, there was an old rancher here in town who, while herding horses in this high-altitude valley, came across the wreckage." And it's the same valley where the Uruguayan rugby team crashed. That's the San Fernando Valley. Do you remember the movie Alive?
Sure.
Okay, true story about an Uruguayan rugby team that crashed in the Andes, and they resorted to cannibalism to survive.
Chilling story.
Well, this aircraft that he knew about was in the same valley, just a little bit further west, okay?
Wow.
So he says, "I'll introduce you to the wrangler." So we went over to the man's house in this town, and through an interpreter, I quizzed him at length, and it fit right in with what I'm looking for. So we organized PAC teams and all the supplies. We went to the site, and it was this missing C-47 U.S. Navy aircraft. And so that mystery was solved as well. But it all came down to a series of coincidences and interacting face-to-face with the people. And in most cases, they're very open and willing to share what they know.
Sure.
But they want to detect that you're interested, that you're sincerely interested.
Right. It's incredible, just kind of the blend of what you need to kind of do here, some of the skill sets that, come into play. Certainly mountaineering at the core of it. That's how it all kind of got started. An interest and a dedication to doing this and helping people. But just time and again, in what you and I have talked about both here on the programs and even during some of the breaks and just chatting, gosh darn it, there's a little bit of luck that flows your way on more than a single occasion. This lady just happened to know somebody, and pretty soon the whole village is interested, and you find what you're there to look for.
It's like Providence.
Yes.
I don't know how else you would describe it, but the number of coincidences, people say, "Oh, I don't believe in coincidences." But I do believe in these happenings. You can chalk it up to whatever you want, but it's happened to me many, many times.
Yeah.
And it's resulted in a successful mission and bringing closure to these families.
Wow. Let's do this. We need to wrap for this, but let's come back. We'll kind of wrap up our second of two programs. The other is still in our archive on our YouTube channel if you want to listen to Clay in that first chat and then this one. And I want to come back and talk a little bit more about MIA recoveries at large. Again, talk a bit, as we did at the end of our first show, about if folks want to donate, if they want to be part specifically of this undertaking here coming up in October and the search for Robert King. We'll take a short break. We'll be back to Countywide right after this.
Life changes, then it changes again. Predicting the unexpected in life is impossible. That's why it's called unexpected. So when it comes to financial goals, our philosophy is don't predict, prepare. Hi, I'm Edward Jones financial advisor Matthias Sandoval. A job loss, change in health, or a loss of a loved one can have a big impact on your family's financial security. Let's work together to help make sure you're equipped for life's unexpected events. Call our office to schedule a face-to-face appointment.
Edward Jones, making sense of investing. Member SIPC.
Verde Solaire, your hometown heating, air conditioning, and plumbing company in the Verde Valley, and your trusted North Central Arizona Goodman dealer. Goodman is a name you can trust with the revolutionary Comfort Bridge technology factory installed into select Goodman gas furnaces and air handlers to ensure the entire system operates at peak energy efficient performance. Verde Solaire offers free in-home estimates, locally owned and operated since 1983. Visit them at verdesolaire.com. Better, cleaner, faster.
Hi, this is Lewis Rice with Rice Accounting Jackson Hewitt Tax Service, with a very sincere thank you for your continued business over the last 20 years. All of us at Jackson Hewitt Tax Service are very honored for the many community awards we've been given over the years. As always, we are open year-round, providing services for taxes, payroll, and bookkeeping. Jackson Hewitt Tax Service, located throughout northern Arizona, can help you with all your tax and accounting needs. For our nearest location, call 800-234-1040.
Let's talk. That's the message from Jonna Randall Murdoch, your local Farm Bureau agent, providing a personal touch when making insurance and financial decisions. Jonna will simplify your insurance needs while offering competitive pricing. Let's talk auto, home, life, and farm. Call Jonna at Farm Bureau today at 928-649-8686. Your Cottonwood Farm Bureau property and casualty insurance company. At Farm Bureau, they insure more than just farms.
We come back to the program as we wrap up the second of two programs with Clayton Kuhles. MIARecoveries.org. I keep saying that website because I strongly encourage you to take a look at the work that this gentleman does. And Clay's from Prescott. I don't know if we've mentioned that the whole time you've been here in our studio. So Prescott fella doing incredible things on a global scale, reuniting families and loved ones with long lost military and service folks. Again, as we kind of wrap up, Clay, coming up in October, you've got to be excited about this mission. You have been to Lieutenant King of Vail, Arizona. You've been to that wreckage, so you're pretty darn positive that there will be some pretty good outcomes here.
Yes, when I reached the site in 2010, I documented many remains laying on the ground surface. It's above timberline, and above timberline is always a good place for a successful recovery because you don't have the scavenging animals.
Yeah.
Everything is out there on the ground surface for the most part. So we've already secured many of the remains, and everything has been thoroughly documented. So when I go back this October, the plan is to get in before the snows fall. Sometimes if they have a protracted monsoon season, the snows will arrive earlier than usual. But if I'm in there first week of October, I'm confident I'll have adequate time to do a full site excavation. We'll recover all the remains and any personal artifacts like dog tags, and these items will then be delivered to the U.S. consulate in Calcutta, who will then transfer them to the U.S. for DNA identification.
Right. And then from that point, how long does it typically take, if there is a typicality, to the family getting confirmation these indeed are the loved ones' remains?
It can take months for the government to complete their DNA work and then notifying the families.
Yeah.
I have no control over that because that's done by Department of Defense, but it can take them some months to accomplish that.
If they know if they have a good suspicion of who the remains belong to, perhaps that'll help in their preparedness and sample comparing and things like that. So maybe it'll move along at a. They've
already collected DNA samples from all the families of the crew members. So
you go. Okay.
The family samples are already in storage at their DNA lab.
Makes perfect sense. All right. Well, God bless you, sir, for what you do. This is extraordinary. I'm already going to extend an invitation once you get back from this mission in October when some time has gone by, and we have some answers about Lieutenant Robert King, lost in a plane crash years ago, of course, during World War II. His family from Vail, Arizona, they've got a lot riding on this gentleman sitting in our studio today. MIARecoveries.org. You can take a look at the website, learn more about this. Yes, you can make a contribution to this ongoing mission of Clay Kuhles. Thank you, sir. Good talking to you.
A pleasure. Thank you for your interest.
It's countywide. We'll see you next time.
This has been Countywide. Listen in each Tuesday and Thursday at this time. If you have a topic or guest idea that you'd like to suggest, email us, news@myradioplace.com.